love, show me pain, make me strong, make me brave. Give my all my strength, all the gas in the tank, straight from work to the bank. Welcome back to Beyond the Mats, the podcast where we dive into the minds and lives of grapplers, fighters, and martial artists. I'm your host, Ethan Geracia, and today's guest is Hunter Fenn, a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu blue belt. Hunter has been putting in work on the mats, competing, and steadily developing his content. Today we'll talk about his life before martial arts, his journey in jiu-jitsu, what drives him to improve, and a little about how he shares his journey with others. Hunter, how are you doing today? I'll kind of give you a second to introduce yourself. If you could just go over your age, where you're from, and where you train.
Well, thank you, man. I'm doing quite well. And for those of you who don't know me, yeah, as you said, my name is Hunter Fenn. I'm a blue belt competitor and creator from Victoria, British Columbia, Canada. So definitely way out. Well, not super far from where you are east to west wise, but across the border at least. Yeah, honestly, I've just been grappling since I was a little kid. That's kind of what it comes down to. Started when I was 7 years old. Took a little bit of a hiatus over COVID, and then when I came back to it, I really just dived headfirst into training as much as I could and just kind of sharing the journey along the way, and that's what got me here.
And that sounds great. So we'll kind of do our first segment here, life before martial arts. What was life like for you growing up before you started doing martial arts?
I've always been kind of, a sports kid, like sportsy kid. I was, wanting to do things where I could burn energy consistently. I had mad ADHD growing up, obviously still do, but I was a very hyperactive child. So any outlet with any means of which I could use that energy for something was always good. But I found that I never got intrigued by things where there was like an end to a means, if you know what I mean. So I guess, you look at football or you look at hockey and things like that. Yeah, you can kind of change little variables here and there, but at the end of the day, you can only do so many plays in the playbook. So when I got into martial arts as a kid, and jiu-jitsu was my first martial art, I've dabbled in other stuff occasionally here too. But I was a kid, started with jiu-jitsu and just wanted something where new things are always being developed. And with grappling, there's always new things being created. And that always really just kept it interesting to me. No matter what, I always go in, I'd learn something new. Even today, I'm always learning something new. So really it started as a way to keep my brain busy. And I got introduced to it by a few friends and their families when I was in like grade 1, and they ended up not staying. They were in it for a few years, went off to other sports, and I stayed in it, and now I'm just addicted to it.
That's cool. I feel like that's something a lot of people like starting jiu-jitsu early on and being able to stick with it. Because I feel like a lot of people normally don't find jiu-jitsu or any martial arts until later, unless it's like karate or something like that, But that's awesome starting jiu-jitsu at such a young age.
Yeah, I would definitely say it helps in a lot of situations, just like especially like the fundamentals and just the really kind of basic dialed down aspects. I feel like it helped me a lot, just making sure I'm sharp in areas that other people just don't get as much time in. Because obviously when you're in a kid's class, you're way more adept and inclined to just be spending more time doing the basic things. And I think that was a really big benefit for me, is it gave me a chance to do that more often and just sharpen up those very, very important tools for later in my journey.
100%. So what does life look like for you right now outside of the mats?
Well, outside the mats, a bit different than usual for sure. Typically, it would be my training, and then outside of it, honestly, I'm just a very big. Yeah, I'm just a normal person. I work like everybody else, but a lot of it just revolves around helping other people and my friends with content. I do some work in sales on the side as well, and that's kind of just in different areas, just helping people with businesses. And that's just something I very much enjoy. And I'm kind of dabbling and diving into learning stuff about management too as well, which is pretty good. So I'm just very excited, for those ventures as well. So I work that 9 to 5 like anyone else. And then I have my hobbies personally for myself, which is, I've gotten into fishing a lot recently, just really appreciating the outdoors more, spending a lot of time with my wonderful girlfriend and just my friends around here, and that's really kind of the life I have currently. But it's a bit different than usual now because I'm recovering from surgery, so that's changes things a little. But yeah, as of now, that's kind of what I'm doing. It's just those low risk, easy hobbies so that I can recover well and get back to my sport.
Would you mind going into that surgery and kind of what that was about, if you're comfortable?
Yeah, absolutely. So, basically around like 2019, I started having issues with my right ear, and it's been a long time. The Canadian healthcare system is wild. We have to wait a long time for shit. Um, but I basically just started having problems with my right ear, and after a long, long time of scans and different doctors and specialists and surgeons, I finally got confirmation I had a cholesteatoma in my right ear, which is basically like a collection of abnormal skin cells and infected air cells in your inner ear, and it can infect a bone behind your ear. Like if you feel behind your ear, like that flat plate of bone, that's called your mastoid, and it's basically just a collection of stuff in there that shouldn't have been in there. So they had to make an incision behind my ear, drill into the mastoid, get rid of the infected bone, the growth, and then there was also like infected bones in my inner ear for hearing that had been eroded by that as well. So they had to go in and remove that, and basically just put in a prosthesis, like a graft, and yeah, basically just drilled out infected bone, removed some stuff that shouldn't have been in there, and then stitched it back up. So yeah, it was quite a procedure, especially for ear surgery is one of the more major ones. So it's going to put me out for, from what to my knowledge, I don't think I'll be able to do jujitsu for at least 4 months, probably longer. So it's really just a matter of, keeping my mental game sharp now.
Jeez, that does sound crazy. I've never heard of anything like that before, but I'm glad surgery went well and everything, and I hope you a speedy recovery.
Yeah, thank you. And I appreciate that. I'm glad it went well too. I got very lucky with my surgical team. I had some very good specialists and doctors that were working with me to make sure everything was taken care of. So luckily, I'm in very good hands. And yeah, that's about all I have to say about that. Really, I guess that's kind of the extent of it. Just now, it's a matter of monitoring, making sure I'm taking care of things properly, and beyond that, not much else I can do. But just focus on being healthy and play the weighted game.
Yeah. So let's kind of jump into jujitsu now and talk about that a little bit. Who were some of your earliest influences or role models that kept you on the mats when you were starting out?
Yeah, yeah. When I was a little kid, obviously, I think the first major role model I really like to shout out was just my first coach, Henry Panigar, is what we called him, Hank. He runs a gym in NBC. The one I went to was in Mill Bay at the time, but now their main gym is in Chemainus, British Columbia, South Island Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and that was the first gym I ever went to as a kid. I trained with them from the age of 7 up till about 18, and that's where my roots really are. All the people there really, helped me. They even changed, like, I would say that the person I was, like, it was a big part of my character development because I was there so much. So in regards to role models, the people there, just a lot of people, like, this guy's like, I'm Greg Walters, one of the black belts there. Alan Davies, who we called Shaggy, he recently got his black belt from there as well. And then once again, my old coach Hank. So very much appreciate those guys. They were a huge influence for me. And then Marcus Serez, who was my original coach's coach. He's one of the few, I believe he recently got his 9th degree black belt, maybe 8th, I believe it's 9th, if I remember correctly. And he's just one of the guys who's just been around the game like a long, long time. So I've had some chances to meet him in person, which was a very cool experience. And I think those are some of my earliest influences. And then we can, if you like, dive into my later competitive influences as I got older and more involved with the sport in that sense. But I would say early on, those guys were definitely the people that I looked up to the most.
That's awesome to hear so many great guys. It sounds like you could go into the later guys too if you'd like, the more recent.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like the later guys I dived into, I've always been a person who, like the younger competitors, So I remember growing up, obviously the first person you'd hear about when you get into competitive jiu-jitsu was Gordon Ryan, and then I dived into Nicky Ryan because at the time when I heard about Nicky, that's when he was like young, tearing stuff up. So that was like super cool for me. I've always been a fan of like the well-known 10th Planet guys. They're a huge influence on my style and just the way I grapple. I'd say it's very 10th Planet-esque, even though I don't train at a 10th Planet. So guys like Ben Eddy, Jeremiah Vance, Gio Martinez, dudes like that. And then especially like recently, guys like Mika Galvao, Dante Leon, and now especially with like me getting more into the leg lock end of things, Landon Elmore has been one of my favorites up and coming. So guys like that, a lot of different styles. And then you throw in greats like Marcelo Garcia, Andre Galvao. So really just a multitude. I just try to take in influences from as many places in sport as I can, because you can never stop learning, and I want to learn by studying the best people in the game to be the best in the game.
Awesome. So now that you're a blue belt, what's been the toughest or most eye-opening lesson for you so far?
There's always someone better than you, and I feel like, it's kind of a cliche lesson, but I guess when I was growing up, I had a decent amount of competitive success because I was a young kid who'd been training for a long time, and then you get into blue belt or higher divisions, and you start competing as that kid who's been on the mats his whole life, and you think, oh wow, I have so much experience. You start doing really well, and then I just kind of realized eventually when I got beaten. When my first competition back as an adult, actually, once I started diving head first and do it again, first division, went super well, sweeped it, won my matches, got gold, and I was like, this is awesome. I'm right on track again. And then one of my current teammates now, Merrick Phillips, who I had a match with, and that's how I ended up meeting him. Actually, was at that tournament competing against him. He was about 17 at the time, and he just blasted through me. And that really kind of humbled me a bit and made me realize it doesn't matter the age, the time people have been training, there's always one person, who can kind of best you. And I think it motivated me to train harder because I never know who or when that person will come along. And I think that just keeps me on my toes a lot to make sure I'm keeping my skills as sharp as they can be.
I agree with that. That's one thing people have a hard time kind of accepting is there's always going to be someone better than you, and like you're just going to have to accept that and just go out there and give it your best.
Absolutely. It's really just taking your ego out of the equation, I think, helps a lot.
It's 100%. I feel like a lot of people have trouble dropping the ego.
Especially in a sport that's like, when you think of fighting, I think people put their ego into it so much because it is kind of like a direct physical like confrontation. So it's hard to take your ego out of something like that, but at the end of the day, like it's almost necessary if you want to improve on a meaningful scale.
Yeah, yeah. Personally, for you, what's your mindset like when you're training? Do you roll to experiment or do you push hard or do you kind of just flow and learn?
I'd say it really depends on like the intention or like if I have competition leading up. I would say like if I have competitions and stuff, I'm really just trying to refine the tools I'm good at or whatever I'm game planning and then push hard in my rounds and make sure that my cardio is good, that I'm just in good physical shape to go out there and perform at my best. But when it's off season, or I'm not around a competition, I guess it's never really off season in jiu-jitsu, but if I don't have a fight coming up, or a match, just really aiming to expand my toolbox and, as you said, experiment with different things. So like whether I want to work on my wrestling, improve certain areas of that, or work on different areas or certain guards, put work into those and just experiment with them. And eventually, like that's when I'd flow around in the room to just kind of like minimize injury risk, things like that. So it all kind of depends on the intention or what I'm trying to achieve out of my training sessions or what my schedule looks like at the time. But I'd say there's a place for all of them. They all have their own purpose, and I try to utilize them each meaningfully.
Awesome. So if you have a tournament on, say, for example, like a Saturday, what day during the week would you stop rolling or if at all?
I believe the last time I competed, which would have been a super fight in June, I'd say I believe I rolled the night before, but I kept it like super light. And if I'm rolling the night before, it's usually just to make sure I'm dived in, I'm locked into my game plan, and I just have everything good in place so I can just get that rust off. And I feel like rolling lightly and just moving around soon before the tournament kind of just keeps me confident because, my timing's sharp and I just can go in there and feel that I'm doing good, and I'm like, okay, I got this. So it depends. Like, I'm sure if it was like certain situations, I wouldn't roll the night before. Like, let's say I had to cut weight or something like that, and I was doing a weigh-in the day before. Personally, like, I wouldn't do that. But it's really dependent. But last time I competed, I believe I rolled the day before. I just made sure to not get injured.
Yeah, I agree with that too. I think that's what I used to do before I compete, kind of just roll, but still just go really, really light. And like, in my opinion, I don't think you're really going to learn anything new that will be a big game changer in that last week. So I personally wouldn't want to risk getting injured before. So I like rolling light.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Just like play it safe. Make sure you go into your competition at 100%.
Yeah. So do you have a one specific moment so far from your competition journey that you remember well, or maybe a favorite?
Also, my recent super fight. Also, my recent one. So that was my first super fight I ever had. and it was very like sentimental to me. It was a little while before the super fight, but in December, this past December, one of the teammates at my old gym had passed away, so that was kind of like a hard hit to like our local community and me and that team I used to train with initially. So kind of leading up, it really put me into perspective, how lucky I am to continue this journey and keep doing the sport, because you never know when that thing can be taken away from you. So when I went to that match, a big part of that was just going in there and thinking about my old teammate and just telling him I was always going to achieve good things in the sport. And I had the chance to go out there and do my first super fight after all that had occurred. So just put in a hard camp, long few weeks of just dialing in the nutrition, grueling cardio sessions, and strength and conditioning just to make sure that I was at my absolute best. And I was so nervous going into that match because it was my first super fight, just trembling, going on the mat, having some anxiety, shaking, sweating, whatever you want to call it. And I went out there, performed, and I was able to get a submission in 13 seconds. I got an inside heel hook, and it was the fastest sub of the night, and was able to bring out a rash guard from my old team and kind of give a little tribute there. So I think that was probably the coolest moment for sure. Recently for me, I'd say ever in my competition journey, maybe even my whole jiu-jitsu journey. Just feeling the energy in that room and just having that crowd and hearing the cheers after you submit somebody, it really kind of adds a different element to it. And that was one of the coolest moments I got to experience in jiu-jitsu, but also I'd just say in my life as a whole.
I'm sorry to hear about your teammate, but that's great you were able to pay
Thank you.
tribute. It sounds like you did a really great job and everything paid off. But speaking of super fights too, my last guest, Trey White, he was telling me to ask you about your guys' super fight. I don't know really anything about that, so if you kind of want to open up and tell your side of that or tell the story.
Yeah, for sure. I love Trey. He's awesome. Me and him initially, I had posted a video on Instagram saying, hey, I'm looking for a super fight. Who wants one? Like last year, around some time in the summer. And no, not last year. What am I talking about? Earlier this year. My bad. Sorry. Earlier this year, I posted a reel saying, hey, I want a super fight. Who's going to do it? Trey posted a video of him holding like a white monster and a cigarette, being like, I want you to come to Eau Claire, Wisconsin. And I messaged him. I'm like, dude, I'll fly. I'll get my passport. Fuck it. I'm down. So got my passport, got it all completed. It's literally sitting in my desk as we speak. Like I can go to the States technically. I'm just not able to medically right now. But so what we were supposed to do was I was going to fly to Eau Claire, Wisconsin, meet Trey somewhere like the Midwest, and then we were going to travel around to a bunch of different like high-level jiu-jitsu gyms in that area. So we were going to go to like Revolution MMA, where another influencer, Adrian, does BJJ trains. We were going to go to Pedigo Submission Fighting. We were going to go to Rufus Sport, Valley Flow Striking, like just a bunch of different places like in that Midwest area. And then at the end of it, after we visited all the gyms, we were going to do a super fight. And it was basically just going to be a content series where we were just going to a bunch of gyms together, never rolling together. And then the first time we'd roll together would be at the end. And then I was potentially going to do a pancration fight somewhere along the way. So it was just a really cool trip that we were super excited to do. But then my surgery got booked, and it was the only time I could get it. If I didn't take the surgery, I'd probably have to wait a very long time. And ultimately, I just figured choosing my health was the right decision at this time. And I just focused on getting recovered from that, got that procedure finished, and now I'm aiming to do that trip with Trey hopefully sometime next year. And it's gonna happen. We're gonna make it happen. I'm not gonna go without doing it.
Yeah, you have to take care of your health first in that situation. I see that, but that's going to be an awesome content series, like just the way you described that. You and Trey together, I feel like that's going to be. And then, like you said, the ending with the super fight, that's going to be amazing to watch.
Yeah, I'm just excited to get in there. I just want to meet Trey in person. I've never had a chance to. So like Trey, if you're listening to this, if I can't get out to you first, you got to come out to me, man. Like I'm waiting for you.
Yeah, he's definitely a character, man. His videos are hilarious. That's one thing that drew me to him was his content is really funny.
There better be a white monster cake waiting for me when I'm out there.
That's what I'm saying. I need some white monster cake sent to my PO box or something.
I gotta try it, man. Everyone's saying it's good. I need to know if it actually is.
Yeah, I need him to send me the recipe at least so I could try my best to imitate.
See if we can do him justice.
So you're really into the content creation too, right?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, I would say that.
What made you really decide to start posting your journey and jump into the content creation side of things?
I've always kind of just been interested in content and putting videos on the internet. I've tried it in a lot of different niches. So when I was younger, I tried, doing videos like with music and doing that type of stuff, posting songs I did. That didn't go well. And then I did like little comedy skits, short little videos, things like that nature. And it just didn't really, it never really panned out for me. And people always said, well, if you're going to make videos, do things you know. And for some reason, never clocked me to do jujitsu content. And once I dived heavily back into grappling again, and it was like a huge quintessential part of my life, I was like, no, fuck it. I'm just going to make videos about it. And for a while, I didn't have too many followers, like I had like 320 earlier this year. So I was like grinding, just posting videos for a while from like last July all the way through to, obviously now. I've taken hiatuses in between occasionally just because there's some stuff I was dealing with in my personal life, and then I got back to posting, and now because I'm just focusing more on like the work and business aspect of things and my injury, I'm just kind of slowing things down. But I'm looking to utilize this time in my recovery effectively towards the tail end to put some good videos out. But yeah, I was just grinding for like a year before I noticed a lot of traction. But I just did it for the enjoyment, really, and just I like documenting my journey and what I do in the sport, and it's always been a passion for me. So I figured I might as well turn that passion into something where I can make a community out of it. And then eventually, at one point earlier this year, I think in like March, I posted a reel that just got some really good traction. I woke up and had like 100,000 views, and I was like, okay, this might be the start of something. And then it was. And from there on, I got 320 followers turned to 1,000, 1,000 turned to 2,500, 25 turned to 5, and then so on. And now we're sitting at 17.9K, almost 18. And yeah, the next goal is 25. So I'm going to try to hit that.
That's great to hear. Congratulations on that. All the hard work
Thank
finally
you.
paying off. That's what I was gonna say too. The self triangle videos and the stuff like that. I found those showed up on my feed before we even talked about doing the podcast and stuff like that. So I thought that was hilarious because once I saw that you were the one who made those videos, I thought that was crazy.
Yeah, those were, yeah, I just remember one time I was like, hey, I'm going to do a self heel hook. And I did. And then everyone was like, but how do I defend it? And then that's when I was like, oh, I can turn this into something. So self jitsu's coming back too. I'm running out of moves, man. I don't know how many moves you can do on yourself. We got to figure something out.
I
I got
know
to find more stuff to do.
that's definitely gonna take some thinking. The triangle one, I was like, there's no way I could even get close to that. So I'm excited to see what else you come up with.
You're going to see what happens in the brain. Let's keep an eye out.
Looking forward, and where do you see your jujitsu journey after your recovery, kind of within the next few years? I know we talked about the Trey White super fight, but other than that, really, anything you have planned yet?
Honestly, now that I'm going to be healthy, after this surgery recovery is finished, I think my aspirations when I come back at this point, I want to, start looking at ways to create a living within the sport. I think that's been my biggest, um, goal for a long time. I want to, I love my jobs now and what I do professionally, and, the work I do in those aspects, as I mentioned, like sales and learning about management and working in those areas. But I really want to, make a living from the sport and martial arts because that's where my real passion lies. So that's what I'm aiming for now, but that's going to be a little while out. So just sharpening my skills, both in the sport, in business, to be able to do that competitively. My aspirations once I recover are just going to be get back in the gym, train as hard as I possibly can, compete as much as I possibly can, and then hopefully next year I'm kind of debating. I think I might do an MMA fight. I want to dive into mixed martial arts because I know earning potential wise that's where the real money lays. So that's a huge aspiration for me as well. I've always wanted to fight, so that's kind of what I'm aiming for with that. Just compete a bunch, continue building my brand, building the community, showing love to the people that have helped me get here and grow to where I am, and hopefully get in the cage at some point.
That's great to hear, man. It sounds like an awesome plan. And I wish you a really speedy recovery too. Good luck with that. And it sounds like once you do get healthy, you got it all planned out.
Thank you, man. And that's what I'm hoping. Just stay humble, just stay healthy, and be the best I can be as an athlete and a human being going forward. And that's what my goals always are, is to just be the best version of myself.
Beautifully said. So that was kind of my last question for you, Hunter. It's been awesome having you on the show and hearing more about your life before jiu-jitsu and everything else. I appreciate your time. I'll kind of give you a second if you want to shout anything out or.
I just want to thank you for having me on, bringing me onto your platform, giving me a chance to speak about what I do. I'm very grateful for that. So thank you. You have a good show here. I'm excited to see the growth in that as well. And then for anyone watching my gym, I just want to say a shout out to West Coast Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and a bunch of my teammates, Merritt Phillips, boy Jamie, my coach John, Shalana, Alex. Love all those guys, and you can find them on Instagram, but West Coast Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and then, they're going to be on there. As I said, my old first gym, South Island Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, that were my roots at. One of the other gyms I train at, Hoodrich BJJ, and their coach, Richard Kanasevich. Shout out to them. And then, a couple sponsors. We got Just Stand Up, bro, Just Up BJJ, and then Train Fundamentals. Fundamentals Jiu-Jitsu, and then their handles Train Fundamentals, the word train, FNDMNTLS. That's kind of all I got to say on that end. Thank you to everyone for listening and to everyone that got me here, and I'm going to continue doing my best for you guys.
We're looking forward to watching your journey, and yeah, man, just appreciate your time. That's all I have to say. I really appreciate you giving us the time, and this has been a great interview. I'm glad to put this one out there.
Yeah, no problem, man. And thank you for having me on. It was great chatting with you, and I appreciate it, and always happy to be a part of it.
Well, guys, that is it for this week's episode of Beyond the Mats. Thank you for tuning in, and if you've made it this far, show some love by dropping a follow or a review and following the show on Instagram at Beyond the Mats.
The next episode coming out next week is with standard jiu-jitsu competitor Noah Schaffner. So stay tuned, and we'll see you next time. Beyond the Mats.
With the past, I never regret it. Yeah, I did it for myself, I ain't searching for credit. Said I couldn't do it, they probably shouldn't have said it. Times changed what it was, yeah, you can forget.